In the summer of 20XX, a tournament was held to decide the next ruler of game industry. This was the Neptunia Hunger Games. Before beginning, I will introduce a quote that perfectly sums up the intentions of all participants. Depending on your answer, I might just kill you, said by CPU Whiteheart. Prior to the running of this event, a poll was run on my MySpace account. These were the results. Hatsumi Sega was voted 4%, Nepgear was 72%, Neptune 14%, Tennoboshi Uzume 4%, Ultra Histoire 3%. All others got 3% when combined. Nepgear is obvious as she was the winner of the Conquest ending in the original Mark II, and Neptune herself is the protagonist. The surprising ones were Mini Histoire and Segami. Let's meet the contestants. From District 1, we have Neptune and Nepgear, the CPU and CPU candidate of Planetune. District 2 gives us Noir and Uni, the CPU and candidate of Last Station. District 3 gives us Blonde and Vert, the CPUs of Louis and Leanbox. District 4 gives us Rom and Ram, the CPU candidates of Louis. District 5 gives us Pishi and Plutia, the CPU of Eden and Ultra Planetune. District 6 gives us Tennoboshi Uzume and Kurome Ankokuboshi. Originally, Tennoboshi Uzume wanted to enter the tournament by herself because she thought it would be cool. However, the Game Masters decided it would put her at an unfair disadvantage, so they decided to team her up with herself. District 7 is Hyper Histoire and Ultra Histoire. They figured their vast knowledge of all the other contestants would put them at a huge advantage. District 8 gives us Adult Neptune and Kruar. For the sake of this game, Kruar starts outside of the Nep note. They figured that giving Adult Neptune a third partner would be unfair, despite her stature as a regular human. District 9 gives us Super Histoire and Hatsumi Sega, an unlikely pairing. District 10 gives us the two human participants, IF, the gust of wind flowing through game industry, as she wrote on her entry card, and Kamba, a nurse in training. District 11 gives us our first Sega Hard Girls as they attempt to take the land back from the CPU console patron unit oppression. Sega Mega Drive and Sega Saturn make up District 11, and District 12 gives us Sega Game Gear and Sega Dreamcast. Day 1 begins. The CPU and the candidates, Neptune and Nepgear, share everything they gather before running. Blonde clutches a first aid kit and runs away. Rom finds a bag of food. Vert gathers as much food as she can, and Ram takes a handful of throwing knives from the ground and retreats. Noir, most likely due to her lack of friends and social skills, is unable to convince Uni to not kill her. As for the Dimension CPUs, Pishi scores a bar of mace from inside the cornucopia. Plutia and Uzume Tennoboshi share everything they gather before running. Quite truly an unlikely pairing. As for the special participants, Kurome and Hyper Histoire decide to team up and share everything they gathered before running. Kruar finds a jug of fresh water. Adult Neptune and Ultra Histoire share everything they gather before running, and Super Histoire takes a couple explosives from near the cornucopia. As for the two regular humans of the group, IF grabs a backpack of supplies and retreats. Meanwhile, Kamba runs away with a sword and some rope, completely ignoring their pre-described rules. As for Sega Hard Girls, Hatsumi Sega finds a bag full of food. Sega Mega Drive finds a bow and some arrows. Sega Game Gear grabs a trident and food and retreats. Meanwhile, Sega Dreamcast almost kills Sega Game Gear with a throwing knife, but misses. Summary of Day 1. So far, only Noir is dead, and Uni is the first person with a kill. Day 1, noon. Nepgear runs away from Neptune runs away from Nepgear, realizing that her opponent has had a history of violent outbursts against her own team. Uni questions her sanity now that she's been separated from her former sister and teammate. Blonde explores the arena. Rom tries to kill a squirrel with an arrow. Rom falls and scrapes her leg while running away from Pishi. Ultra Store makes a slingshot with materials from the ground. Adult Neptune and Karar create an alliance. As for some special favors, Plutia defeats Tennobushi Uzume in a fight, but spares her life. However, the payment Tennobushi had to make was so dire that it cost her purity. Kurome, Ankokuboshi, and Hyper Restore are working together now. Kurome tends to her wounds. A very likely alliance forms. Segani, Istor, IF, Kampa decide to work together and raid Mega Drive's camp while she is away. Suddenly, Saturn, who has been hiding the whole time since day 1, sets a bush that Sega Game Gear is hiding on in fire, killing her. Sega Dreamcast hides in a bush, terrified and scared, most likely having witnessed the event, although no proof of that can be obtained. Summary of Day 1, noon. A new death added, the Sega Game Gear. In addition, another character with a kill has been added to the list, that being Sega Saturn, Sega's ultimate hardware. Lightfall appears. Neptune, Nepgear, and Uni discuss a game plan for the morning. Neptune ceased her running away from Nepgear upon realizing that it was just paranoia and the thought that she might die within the context of these games. Blonde, Vert, and Rom sleep in shifts, hoping the other two do not betray them. Tennobushi Uzume is approached by Kurome and Ankokuboshi. They seem to want to create an alliance. Meanwhile, Ram, all alone, thinks about winning and what life would be like as the new ruler of game industry. Day 1, Nightfall. Pishi receives a hatchet and water from an unknown sponsor. Truthfully, it was Mr. Bad, Anondeath, and CFW Trick that made such a generous donation. The terror of darkness. Segami cries herself to sleep. Plutia slips on a frozen river and drowns, and Super Histoire starts a campfire material on the ground. Hyper Histoire begs for Ultra Histoire to kill her. She refuses, keeping Hyper Histoire alive. Seems some sort of camaraderie between each other. Adult Neptune receives a hatchet from an unknown sponsor, most likely Ray from there. And Sega Mega Drive receives special medical supplies and nuts from an unknown sponsor. Truthfully, no one knows who this sponsor is. IF and Kampa fall asleep in a tree. Meanwhile, somewhere else on the map, Sega Saturn and Sega Dreamcast tell stories about their districts and lives to each other. Day 1 Nightfall summary. A new death has been added, Plutia. No killer can be confirmed. It's most likely assumed she got lost in the darkness. In addition, from inside the Net Note, Karar betrays Adult Neptune, killing her, although because it was not caught on camera, it was recorded as a mysterious death. Neptune tends to Nepgear's wounds. Pishi discovers a water source. Vert kills Rom as she tries to steal supplies from the camp. Ram discovers a hidden pathway. Sega Saturn and Dreamcast create an alliance. Uni, meanwhile, chases Blonde on her own, leaving her original team of 3. Tennobushi Uzume constructs shelter with sticks and grass. Ultra Restore climbs to a tree to make a resting spot. Kurome tries to kill Hyper Restore, but she is able to escape. And Mega Drive, feeling a bit adventurous, decides to explore the arena, unaware of the traps that have fallen Plutia, and maybe future contestants. Yuji Naka and Alphabet decide to sponsor. Seigami receives healthy food from Yuji Naka, and Super Restore receives healing ointment from the CEO of Google and from the CEO of Alphabet. IF tends to Kampa's wounds. Despite Kampa being the nurse, she is unable to heal herself. Summary of the morning of day 2. A new death has been added. 2 of them, to be precise, Rom and adult Neptune. In terms of kills, Vert and Uni, along with Sega Saturn, hold the distinctions of being the only 3 players who have killed another active player. It appears that Ram, finding her little location, was unaware of the trap set by the game masters and was killed mysteriously. Uni cooks some squirrels and enjoys eating more than she thought. Vert receives clean water from an unknown sponsor. Kawar receives matches from an unknown sponsor. Anko Kuboshi stays awake all night on pure adrenaline. Saturn hurdles up next to a fire and cooks the meat she hunted earlier in the day. Hyper Restore spears Ultra Restore in the back with a trident. Pishi wounds Ten Nobushi Uzume in a confrontation, but spares her life so as to apologize to Plutia. After all, they entered it together. Seigami, Super Restore, and IF sing songs together, hoping for the best. Kampa looks at the night stars and wonders if the sky and stars are real. After all, she had just been on a team with IF, seemingly to have abandoned her inner sleep. Sega Dreamcast climbs to a tree trying to get some rest, and Mega Drive hums in the night. More deaths have been added, specifically Ram. As for the killers, we now add Hyper Restore to that list. Good intentions. Neptune receives medical supplies from a sponsor, most likely Izuka. Nipgear and Uni commit a double suicide together to demonstrate their love for each other. Blonde receives healing ointment from a sponsor, most likely Shigeru Miyamoto. Ten Nobushi hides in a bush, terrified and scared. Kuror has a minor panic attack, considering that she's still trapped in a book with no owner to open it. Saturn questions her sanity. Seigami and Super Restore split up to search for some much-needed resources. Meanwhile, Mega Drive, away from it all, continues her exploration in search for water. Pishi discovers a hidden pathway, perhaps the same one Ram discovered earlier. Vert sees poisonous fog but manages to escape. Kurome dominates Hyper Restore, killing her. Meanwhile, IF, having a panic attack, runs away from Kampa, her only real teammate. Another summary of where the tributes lie. The current death total is 10. Plutia, Restore, Ram, Uni, Game Gear, Nepgear, Adult Neptune, Rom, Noir, and Hyper Restore. At the current time, only 3 tributes have managed to kill another person. Nightfall. Vert was killed mysteriously. It seems she was unable to effectively escape the fog. Sega Saturn looks at the night stars and sky and wonders if it is real, not unaware of the fact that Kampa, a few hours earlier, had the same questions, and Sega Dreamcast decides to set up camp for the night. Neptune and Blonde huddle for warmth and love. Pishi quietly hums at night, realizing she is now a solo player. Ten Ooboshi Uzume, Kurome Ankokuboshi, Kuror, and Seigami joke with each other, having formed a new team. Meanwhile, Super Restore decides to kill IF, and Kampa attempts to start a fire, but given her lack of training and the lack of materials, she is unsuccessful. A summary. 12 contestants are now dead. Unreal. Still, only 3 contestants are alive who have kills. The other two, Vert and Uni, have perished a while ago. Neptune is pricked by thorns while picking berries in the morning of day 4. Blonde receives healing ointment from a sponsor, most likely Link. Pishi runs away from Tenobo Uzume. Regardless, she only does this out of kindness, as Pishi is more than capable of taking down Uzume herself. Kurome makes a wooden spear from tree branches. Kuar slips on a frozen river and drowns. Unlike the case of Lydia, Kuar ends up falling because she is unable to see and because the pages of the book got wet, thus ripping her to shreds as it went along. Meanwhile, Segami sees the poisonous fog but manages to escape. Super Histoire explores the area. Kampa constructs shelter with sticks and grass. Mega Drive, Saturn, and Dreamcast hunt for the other tributes, forming the team called Team Sega Hard Girls. A summary of Day 4. One more player is dead. Beginning of the end. Neptune tends her wounds with leaves and water. Super Histoire and Kampa fall asleep holding hands. Pishi's campsite. Blonde approaches Pishi's campsite and asks to create an alliance. Kurome sets up a camp for the night. Segami receives a hatchet and water from an unknown sponsor. And Tenoboshi Uzume sees a fire but stays in place. Most likely, either Kurome or Kampa's fire. Nightfall. Seeing as the 3 Sega Hard Girls were working together in a team large enough, along with their combined power, they began to distrust each other. As they get into a fight, Sega Mega Drive quickly kills both of them. Despite being the weakest in terms of hardware, she was the smartest in terms of tactics. Dreamcast and Saturn were arrogant. That is why they lost. Day 4. Nightfall. Only 9 contestants remain. Kurome Akakuboshi, Super Histoire, and Sega Mega Drive are the only 3 living participants with kills to their name. Mega Drive herself holds 2 times more kills than any other killer in the map. Day 5, morning. Neptune, Blonde, and Pishi work together and hunt down Tenoboshi Uzume. Pishi, outside of everyone's point of view, managed to trick everyone by running away from Uzume, who is much taller and older in appearance, convinced Neptune and Blonde that Uzume was being the aggressor, thus exhibiting what is called proxy violence. Pishi gets away with everything, no worse for wears. Akakuboshi sings a song while searching for a food source. She finally finds some wild berries. Kampa and Sega Mega Drive decide to hunt for other tributes. Segami defeats Super Histoire in a fight, but spares her life, most likely due to the previous kindness. 8 contestants remain. Kurome Ankokuboshi was killed mysteriously. It appears the wild berries were poisonous. Neptune stays awake all night on pure adrenaline. This might come back to bite her, as she needs to remain focused in order to win. Sega Mega Drive attempts to start a fire, but is unsuccessful given the lack of materials available. Psychopathy. Blonde sets up a stream of trap explosives that she got from Super Histoire, killing Pishi, Segami, Histoire, and Kampa in one fell swoop, thus marking her as the highest killing player on the map. 3 contestants remain. The protagonist herself, Neptune, the monster of Loli, and savior of Ramen Ram, Blonde, and the smartest of the Sega Hard Girls, Mega Drive. An unfortunate coincidence. Neptune is attacked and eaten alive by a wild animal, most likely sent from a donator, specifically Miyamoto. Blonde injures herself tripping over a log, and Mega Drive, away from all the violence, manages to receive healthy food from a sponsor. Summary of Day 6, morning. Finally, Neptune's tracker can be explained. Typically, when looking at one of these charts, You'll notice in the tribute summary that Neptune is nowhere to be seen in any of the previous charts. What happened? Despite still being considered a player, she managed on her own time to rip out the tracker that they placed inside of her and left it somewhere, presumably breaking it. Seeing as the Game Masters found it cheating, Miyamoto donated to the Game Masters and convinced them to kill her. She was unable to focus and fend off the animals as she was sleep deprived. There goes the protagonist of protagonists. A victor is declared, but who is it? Is it Blonde, the brute force heroine of the Wii or Sega Mega Drive, the genius herself? Victory goes to Lowy. Blonde poisons Sega Mega Drive's drink, using the berries that Neptune found. Mega Drive drinks it and dies. Honor the Fallen. Blonde has 6 kills. Mega Drive has 2 kills. Super Restore has 1 kill. Pishi has 1 kill. Korone, 1 kill. Sega Saturn, 1 kill. Vert, 1 kill. Restore, Hyper, 1 kill. Uni, Hyper, 1 kill. In terms of the ranking, this is not what was expected. People originally believed that Nepgear had the highest chance of winning, but she didn't even place top 3. Neptune was the most accurate vote. Meanwhile, Blonde herself, and along with Sega Mega Drive, didn't even get to the top 4. Truly, this was an amazing Hunger Games.